You are listening to the Information Security Innocent Podcast, Episode 3, originally released on April 17th, 2020. My name is Josh Amishav. This week we'll discuss the latest InfoSec news, as well as reverse image searches to help you track down people and places. Direct support for this podcast comes from BreachSense, the data breach monitoring platform. Integrate BreachSense's powerful yet easy-to-use API into your existing security solutions to prevent account takeover and stop online fraud. This week, Cloudflare announced that they stopped using Google's reCAPTCHA and switched to HCAPTCHA instead. This is a great move for those wanting to avoid Google's tracking across the internet. HCAPTCHA is a privacy-focused capture provider that doesn't sell your personal data to advertisers. Now, why should we care? Google's reCAPTCHA system works by calculating a risk score to determine if you just need to click a box that says, "I'm a human," or need multiple rounds of clicking on crosswalks and bicycles. Now, one way it does this is by checking if you already have a Google cookie installed in your browser, meaning the session cookie that allows you to open up a new tab in your browser and not have to re-log in to your Google account every time. Now, in order for the risk score system to work accurately, websites are supposed to embed the reCAPTCHA code on all of their web pages. The idea is that reCAPTCHA is supposed to learn over time the behavior for specific websites' users, which helps the underlying machine learning algorithm generate more accurate risk scores. So if you're signed into your Google account, Google could then get data about you across every site you visit that has the embedded reCAPTCHA code, which, to be honest, is identical to what every other internet giant does to track you even when you're away from their website. Now, in other news, the Google project patched a vulnerability this week that allowed attackers to trick users into leaking their credentials. Felix Wilhelm from Google's Project Zero found that you can inject a new line character, specifically a line feed character, the %0a, into URL, which gets injected into the credential helper protocol stream. In other words, if you ran a command like Google clone https://example.com and then the %0a, the line feed character, host equals github.com, the cached or stored credentials for github.com would be leaked to example.com due to an insecure handling of new lines in the credential helper protocol. The patch for this was released on April 14th. Now for some ransomware news. According to the Wall Street Journal, a few months before their accounting and government scandal, Travelex reportedly paid $2.3 million ransom to restore their operations. So over New Year's weekend this year, Travelex's network was infected with the Sodini Kiwi ransomware, which encrypted their entire network, deleted backup files, and copied more than 5 gigabytes of personal data, like birth dates and social security numbers, as well as credit card numbers. Interestingly enough, the initial demand was for $3 million, but the Wall Street Journal confirmed that Travelex negotiated down to only $2.3 million to get their data back. On the flip side, internal documents belonging to some of the largest aerospace companies like Boeing, Lockheed Martin, and SpaceX were leaked after they refused to pay their ransom after being infected by the Doppelpaymer ransomware. This is inspiring to see because obviously paying ransom only encourages these kinds of attacks, but when you're Lockheed Martin and the specifications for your anti-mortar defense antenna system was leaked, or in general your company's crown jewels were published, and you have the means to pay the ransom and you don't, that's definitely a step in the right direction. There's been a couple of data leaks in the news lately. If you're a serious gamer, you've definitely heard of Scuff Gaming. Bob Diachenko from Comparitech found an unsecured Scuff database that exposed more than 250 million customer records. The database didn't require a password or any authentication. My guess is that it was an unsecured Azure blob storage based on the details. According to Comparitech, the database also had a ransom note on it demanding 0.3 Bitcoin in order not to leak the data. This week, ZDNet reported that Quid was breached. The leak contained the records of 4 million users. Quid is an online marketplace for trading collectibles like stickers, cards, and toys. Now, the leak happened at some point during 2019, and it's been traded on various forums for a couple of months now. BreachSense imported the data last month. Quid, on the other hand, still hasn't disclosed any recent security incidents, so it's unclear if they're unaware of the breach or just trying to keep it quiet. Perhaps one of the reasons that the data is now publicly available is that the data leaked email addresses, usernames, and passwords, but the passwords were hashed using Bcrypt, which is harder to crack and thus probably has a lower market value as opposed to leaks that are in plain text. Pastebin updated their terms and conditions this week and removed the search option from their website as well as their API, even for paid accounts. Pastebin, in case you've been living under a rock, allows people to share text snippets. It's often used to share code as well as all kinds of other, inverted quotes, data like leaked passwords, doxing, or personal details of a target, and even malware payloads. The issue is this effectively stops automated searches from locating sensitive data like credentials. Now, you can still use a Google dork like site:/pastebin.com in your keywords, but this only works if Google indexed the paste that you're after. Well, I get what Pastebin is trying to do, but by removing the search option, they effectively made it really easy for bad guys to hide sensitive data in plain sight without allowing defenders to catch the malicious payloads or dump credentials before they're used in the wild. According to CSO Online, over 700 malicious packages with similar sounding names to their legitimate counterparts were uploaded to RubyGems. RubyGems is a repository for third-party Ruby libraries. The packages contained a malicious script that hijacked cryptocurrency transactions on Windows computers and replaced the recipient's wallet address with one under the attacker's control. The way this worked was the Ruby gem, which is essentially a tar archive, contained executable code. The gems contained a file called aaa.png. Now, while that file was pretending to be an image file, it was actually an executable Windows file. The make file simply renamed aaa.png to aa.exe during installation, and then executed it, which didn't require any additional user interaction. aaa.exe was a Ruby program created by Ruby2exe that used obfuscated Visual Basic to execute. The file was saved in the program data directory and was configured to run after every system reboot. The script ran in a loop monitoring the computer's clipboard to find strings that look like a Bitcoin wallet address and then changed that address to the attacker's address so that any subsequent transaction would use the attacker's wallet instead. Now, supply chain attacks aren't new, and other open source repositories like Node's npm and Python's PyP have been previously attacked as well. There were very few defenses on software repositories that protect against this kind of attack, and we're kind of reliant on endpoint solutions for detection. It seems like the only at-scale solution here is dynamic or static analysis tools. Now, I was trying to avoid talking about Zoom this week, but a few people asked me about the 500,000 Zoom accounts that suddenly appeared for sale. So as far as I can tell, this wasn't a breach at Zoom. This appears to be a result of a credential stuffing attack. This is where attackers use data from previous breaches to automate the login functionality of their target to figure out which usernames and passwords are valid. This also explains why the data is selling for less than 1 cent per user. And this is yet another reminder why it's so important to use your password manager to avoid reusing the same password across multiple apps. I personally like KeepAssXC, but there are a lot of options out there. If you don't want to store your passwords in the cloud, then KeepAssXC is probably the best option to sync your passwords across all of your devices. Now, previously we talked about using the LinkedIn Sales Navigator API to search for email addresses associated with a given LinkedIn account for free. This is very useful both from a OSINT perspective as well as BizDev. As of April 8th, though, the API method that we discussed no longer works without a paid Sales Navigator account. The good news is that Steve Adams from IntelligenceWithSteve.com came up with another method that still works. Now, Microsoft owns LinkedIn, thus it makes sense that they integrated Sales Navigator with Outlook. In order to keep searching LinkedIn for email addresses for free, you need to create a sockpuppet Microsoft account at accounts.microsoft.com/account, then sign into the web version of Outlook at outlook.live.com/OWA using your new account. In Outlook, if you go to the contacts section at outlook.live.com/people, then create a new contact via add a contact, and enter the target details, including what you think the target's email address is. Then click on the profile icon or the icon with the target's initials in your contact details. Then the new sub-window, click on LinkedIn. If this is the first time you're doing this, you'll need to associate this with a LinkedIn account, so click on Continue to LinkedIn. And in the pop-up, and then sign into your LinkedIn account associated with your sockpuppet account that you created and click Accept. Now, if you go back to Outlook, if your target's email was used for their LinkedIn account, the sub-window will now show the LinkedIn profile, and you can scroll to the bottom of the sub-window and click on See Full Profile of LinkedIn on LinkedIn if you want more information about them. Now for a quick OSINT segment. Bellingcat ran a piece last December on using reverse image search for online investigations. Most of us are familiar with using Google for reverse image searching, but I want to cover two possibly better alternatives when conducting online investigations with a focus on identifying locations and people. Yandex, at least for the moment, provides the best reverse image search. The runner-ups are probably Bing and then Google, followed by TinEye, but TinEye is really for intellectual property violations and look for exact copies of images. Now, if you go to yandex.com, click on Images, then click on the camera icon. Only then enter the image's URL or upload the image file. It's a bit counterintuitive because if you submit a URL in the search bar after clicking on Images but before the camera icon, your results won't be related to your search query. Besides for location images, Yandex's facial recognition is really good. It returns not only similar pictures, but also different photographs of the same person in different backgrounds and positions. Compare that to Google and Bing, which just returns photographs of people wearing similar clothes or general facial features. Yandex really shines here. Another cool feature is that Yandex automatically extracts text in the image and turns it into something machine readable. This obviously depends on the image quality and the text alignment, but it's a very useful feature. I should also note that this only works for Latin or Cyrillic fonts. Now let's talk about Bing. If you go over to bing.com, then in the search bar, click on the camera icon. That's the box with the dot in the middle. Here, once again, you can paste in an image link or upload a file. Now, what's cool about this is that when there's a lot of extraneous noise in the picture, Bing allows you to crop the image via the visual search link below the image. This lets you improve the search results by removing the extraneous elements in the picture. One side note is if the image is small to begin with, you should crop it yourself beforehand because low-resolution images give really bad results. Finally, images.google.com is what we're probably all familiar with, and it's fine for simple searches, especially for identifying well-known people. But if you want to locate images that are not close or exact copies, then your mileage may vary. The Bellingcat article continues with a 5-image survey they tested on Yandex, Bing, and Google's reverse image search, which had some really interesting results. The bottom line is, though, use Yandex, and if that fails, try Bing and then Google. Increase the resolution on your source image if it's small. None of the search engines can do much with an image under 200 by 200. Try cropping out unrelated elements of an image if it negatively affects your search. Search engines tend to focus on people, so pixelate them out if you need them to focus on the background elements instead. That's it for today. If you have any questions or feedback, please contact me at podcast@breachsense.io. Show notes, including links to the items we discussed this week, are available at breachsense.io, then click on the podcast link. If you got value from the episode, then please leave a short 2-sentence review and share with a friend. See you all next week.